Good evening and thank you for joining us for 12 News at Midnight. I'm Kyle Spizak. We begin tonight in Tioga County, where a ceremony was held in Owego on Saturday to honor those who fought and died at Pearl Harbor. 12 News' Brian Melanson has more.
December 7th, 1941, a date which lives in infamy. 83 years later, friends and relatives of those who fought in the attack on Pearl Harbor gathered at the VFW in Owego to remember their sacrifices. Among those honored is Owego's own Seaman First Class Delmar Dale Sibley, who has been entombed aboard the battleship USS Arizona since that fateful day. VFW Memorial Veterans Day Chairman Jim Raftis tells 12 News that the most important thing that survivors can do is to never forget.
The key word is remember. I remember all the servicemen from Owego that went. But the key thing with that is our soldiers made the supreme sacrifice. They fought, they got Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, and they came home. Veterans need to be honored for their service because they won't talk about it. So our thrust is to get them to share their stories as best they can.
Lawrence Latin, a naval veteran, says it's important to honor all veterans.
Well, not only Pearl Harbor, we got to remember the sacrifices of our men have made in all the various wars, right up through to Afghanistan. Our men and women have served and fought and died for this country.
Both Raftis and Latin hope that the rest of the country will continue to honor those who fought at Pearl Harbor for years to come.
And the more that we can do that to get them out, I think it's a tribute to them for their sacrifices and their courage.
Those in attendance at Post Glenn A. Warner spent much of the afternoon exchanging stories of loved ones and of shared experiences while honoring the fallen. In Owego, Brian Melanson, 12 News, Tioga County.